but you not only presented, but you also were blessed by the presentations of other people. What was your, the best presentation, not maybe the best presentation, but the thought, let's do this, or that you took from this symposium? What touched you the most? What touched you the most?
I would say that I was once again just reinforced in the universality of Ellen White's writings. The fact that no matter where you're from, no matter what age, no matter what part of the world, it has great relevance. And when they're talking about the principle-centered approach on how to apply her writings, I was really impressed with all the presentations that regardless of the time we're living in, or the age, or the part of the world, Ellen White's writings have great relevance, and they can transform and enhance any part of the world where they're effectively implemented. That's what impresses me.
Well, I would like to say that I am very, very pleased that this conference, this symposium conference call as you wish it, is unique in a sense of unity of thought and spirit. Sometimes you go to these conferences and there's one camp, another camp, but here, this passion. Everybody is passionate, for spreading the spirit of prophecy, books, and the truth, and it is something very, very positive, and that is power. If you have unity, you can turn upside down the whole world.
Well, I really enjoyed very much, Anna, the statistics that you presented here, because sometimes we are tempted saying, we will establish a website and that will take care of everything. And that's not a reality. With such a large number of people that are not even able to read, we have to develop other strategies. Otherwise, we are just speaking to ourselves. We are reaching a segment of the church, but not a whole church. And this is something that I think that we have to target strategies that can contemplate all segments of society that are in need.
I've been challenged by the statistics as well. Okay. I'm just finding that we have a double challenge here. If the reading of the Spirit of Prophecy is not being practiced by members, it's very possible that we have the same statistic for the Bible. So I'd like to encourage us that as we try to promote the reading of the Spirit of Prophecy, we should not forget the greater light.
For me, I think one take home is what will happen to the next generation. Because, like, this morning, let me even put it, when Mrs. Uswanchu was to tell the Bible story for the children, where were the children? Outside. They were outside, you see. They were marginal population, isn't that? I see. So, and I think that plays out in almost every aspect of our church life. We say the children are the generations of today and tomorrow, but sometimes by our practices, we do what? They are highly marginalized. And so the question is, what happens to the next generation? Will it be what we read in the scriptures that when the older generation are past, then there arose what? Another what? That they not know the Lord. So I think I'm sitting by one here who has a passion for that strongly. And like we mentioned yesterday, I think there is need the roundtable we had later yesterday. We talked about a collaboration between the A.G. White Youth Ministry, and I want to add the Children Ministry. I think there has to be an intentionality in how we can integrate E.G. White, youth ministry and what? And children ministry. And I think that will help.
Well, this is my sermon right here, so the only thing I would add to that is family ministries, along with the ministries that you've mentioned, I think should work very closely together and start at the grassroots to actually implement a new way of looking at Ellen White. The other thing I think I would leave here with is the sense that to make a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, Ellen White's writings are critical. Christians can be made in a lot of different ways, but for the Seventh-day Adventist Church to understand its unique function, its unique mission in this world at this time, Ellen White's writings, I believe, are a critical part of that process. And so for me, leaving here, all the presentations have just underscored for me again how important it is that we get down to the grassroots to help new believers and to help our existing believers to understand who they are and what they're here to do.
Okay. For me, I used to think that for Ellen G. White, we have it. We have done a lot. But this conference has made me come to the realization that there is still a lot we have to do. There is still a lot we have to do, especially in our continent, the African continent. And I really praise God for this conference, that it has gone very well. All the presentations were fantastic, and that we have all gotten something out of it, and we are going back well equipped and in a position to do something in our fields.
Thank you very much. I think we can take off there because we have a lot of questions. Maybe you make more comments as we move on. Sam, you want to make a comment?
You mean what I took up from this conference myself? Oh, okay. Very short. I got a lot from the presenters and the sharing itself, but the big thing for me was the presence of these many people from all parts of Africa and even from the global church. I was thinking, with the burden I have for our people on this continent, and when I saw many delegates coming, I was impressed by the intellectual, spiritual curiosity of our people. Our people want to know what they can do to advance the redemptive mission of Jesus. And the information was timely. I have a sense that the church in this region is going somewhere, and they're going somewhere very fast.
Okay, please go on. I have a lot of questions here. I don't know how far we can go, but let's take off. Some of them are just maybe like observations and requests. This one says, could you please explain what the quotation by E.G. White means that talks about amalgamation of man and beast? Anyone? There's no source. Source is not quoted. We're going to vote for Dr. Tim on this one. No, Dr. Tim, I'm kicking the ball over to you.
Well, this is one of the most controversial statements by Ellen White, because some people that understand of genetic engineering or something like that know that it's quite impossible to have from different families of, speaking a simple language, of beings to to have some kind of amalgamation with other ones. The statement that Ellen White makes, the most common one, is where she says that the degeneration of that is seen in human beings is caused by the amalgamation of man and beasts. Herbert Douglas in his book explains this statement, saying that Ellen White is not saying amalgamation of man with beasts, but and beasts. So in his opinion, it would be amalgamation between human beings and amalgamation between animals. I don't know if that explanation solves the problem, because it would, to a certain extent, it's a possibility. Or some people would challenge this kind of explaining it. I have not a final answer to this question, and I don't know if somebody would have it. I believe that, for instance, some 50 years or more, we would doubt that to clone an animal would be possible. But genetic engineering has been shown that this is a possibility, even to clone, and many other things. I personally believe that, but this is my personal belief only, that the devil knows more of genetic engineering that we can realize. And maybe there are ways that science today has not yet come to this point. But it's something that I think that we could not close. I would never say that was a mistake. Then we will. Whenever you say that's an error, is a mistake in Ellen White, you close the discussion. You are no longer open to new discoveries. And I think that we as human beings do not know completely genetic engineering. I think that there are some things to be discovered. I don't know if somebody... Dwayne, what would you add to my answer?
Nothing.
But as we know, the final word is always of our boss. No?
Now, I think another question here, will take this directly. Please explain 2 or 3 suggestions on how to spread or promote the writings of Ellen White. What can we do immediately where we go and when we go?
In a couple of minutes, maybe in 40 or so minutes, we will be talking about the consensus statement and also about some interesting points that we will be discussing tomorrow morning with some leaders during the strategic planning. And hopefully, after this strategic planning with some leaders, there will be something that will be for the sake of promotion and publication, something would be done. So please be patient with this question as today, because something is cooking on the pot. And we hope that the Lord will finish the cooking of this porridge.
Along with the plan tomorrow, the recommendation from this conference, I do believe that everyone here can go home and just determine that they will do at least 1 or 2 things. Maybe you won't have 10 or 15 recommendations from this conference, but at least in your mind, when you're here, you can write down, I plan to do this 1 or 2 things when I go home to promote it. Be it sharing it, be it preaching on it, be it distributing some of our books, but all the good that you've received from this conference, it seems like we would just be so remiss if we didn't go back and right away, maybe preach a sermon on it, maybe pass something out, but do something to promote the beauties of this wonderful gift that the Seventh Adventist Church has.
I would strongly second what Dr. Baker just said. It seems to me like the question is 2-pronged. One is, and it's already been alluded to here, as a result of this symposium, it seems to me like many of the leaders here are taking ownership of the gift for themselves here in Africa. That is an absolute necessity, because a world church cannot take ownership for everything and accomplish everything. We can try to take ownership, but we can't accomplish everything. So what he's saying is to make up your own list of what you're going to do immediately and do something about it in your own church, conference, mission, wherever you're from, is, I think, imperative. It also would be imperative, and I hope that you will take us up on it, if you check the White Estate website, there's a place that says contact us. You don't even have to put one of our names in. You don't even have to remember our names. But if you have suggestions for things that the White Estate or the General Conference should be doing, send them to us. They will get filtered out and sent to one of us there at the office by the person who answers the mail. So it helps us if we know where people, as we say, we don't want to be scratching where nobody's itching. So if you can help us know where your needs are, where you're itching, why, we can try to scratch there. In other words, we'll try to do something to help those, but it's got to be two-pronged. What you do here in Africa, and then what the church tries to do through the World Church and through the resources that the World Church has. But I would again second what Dr. Baker just said.
May I just say one thing? In addition to what Jim just said, I think one of the easiest things you could do is just map the lay of the land in your territory. What are the felt needs that are on the ground where you are? I was talking with several of you, and several people mentioned to me, just listening, that extremism is a major issue. People who are taking Ellen White's writings and taking them to an extreme, injuring health, dropping out of school, affecting families and children. And just from talking among you, I know that when we go back and when we sit down together, we're going to have to talk about that, address that tomorrow morning when the strategy session begins. Now, I know, Anna, I'm pretty sure that they're going to want to hear from you what are the felt needs you have on the ground. So in addition to contacting us, it would be wonderful if, as you take a survey of your people, if you could send that information on, even if it's anecdotal information on, it helps those who are trying to divine what resources to produce and where to put certain funding, which is always limited. It will help us at least understand where to target.
And don't forget also that each of the 3 divisions has a research center. So there is the branch office here, which is a general conference institution, but each of the divisions has a research center. So don't overlook contacting them and trying to give them ideas for things that could be done in your particular division.
I will take another one. Why it is essential to avail digital materials to people, there is a danger of killing the digital evangelist work. You said it goes together. How? How do you ensure that translations are correctly done?
Let me take the first part of this question, how they may go together. First of all, those even people who prefer to read electronically still go back to the hard copies. Because an electronic version for reading, you cannot see the page, you cannot memorize where it was written, you don't have this visual memory. Because every page is the same. So I would say it generates interest for people to go and buy the book and to have the book. So for this reason, they go together. At the same time, we have to be very open that we live in the 21st century. If we do only literature evangelism, we will miss the point, because we are not in the 20th century anymore. We have to be very wide open to the needs of the people and go use both resources, electronic and print. Print will not go away, but electronic will support the print and vice versa.
Okay.
Regarding the translation, maybe someone else can.
Regarding translations, I can't speak for every translation that is done by every independent ministry, etc. Let me tell you about the church's position. The White Estate will only place on our website for downloading copies of books, translations of books that have come through the official organization. We don't read all the languages. We have 90-some languages up right now, and we're working on getting more languages on our website. Obviously, we do not read all those languages. So there are two things. One, we hope that because the translation has been vetted by the local publishing house before it is sent to us, that it's accurate. If it's not, our current website allows the English and the translation to be put on the screen side by side, so that anyone that reads English as well as the other language can compare. Now again, I don't read all these languages, but let me tell you, there's a few situations. I don't know of any African languages, so don't start saying, Lord, is it I? But there are some in the world where people just in the past have translated as they wanted to translate, and if they didn't like it, they left out a few paragraphs. Well, even I, not reading that particular language, can see if the original chapter had 17 paragraphs and what they've given us as the official translation has 13 paragraphs, we've got a problem. So you see, this new technology is helping in a second way. So we try to vet them through the publishing house, and so we don't take private translations, in other words, take them through the official translations through the publishing house, but we also now have this capability so that many people can read, at least even if they can't speak English, can compare the two.
I would just like to mention that I think it would be very useful if the research centers that we have here in the continent, as well as the branch office, could be places where if you see that a translation is not being well done in a point, you see a mistake, you send an email to the research center or to the branch office, and they can forward it to whoever published the book. Nothing that we do is perfect. Yeah. George Knight once told me that after the book is published is that you see the mistakes. Correct. And so the same thing happens. So instead of just speaking in a general basis, I think it would be nice. You could help us. In case you find something, send us, and we can try to forward you to the
Okay, now let me speak reality. Feel free to send it to whoever you want locally. But, and again, I have no examples from Africa for this, so please, again, don't say, Lord, is it I? But there are parts of the world where we have this problem. And by sending it to the local people, they're aware of the problem and they're part of the problem. They don't want to fix it. So, you know, if you're going to send it to the local, that's biblical. Go to the person first. So if there's a problem, go there. But there is such a thing as a carbon copy, a CC, or a BCC. If you're not brave enough to put the CC, send us a copy also when you come up with a problem, so that we can try to work at it from our angle, because sometimes we know nothing about them for several years, and then finally it comes to our notice. But you need to be aware, some places, the local leadership, they're happy with the mistranslation. Or apparently they're happy, I don't want to judge. Apparently they're happy with the mistranslation.
And maybe to make a statement or two about the soft copy and then the early work. About 2 years ago, we ordered for hundreds of CD-ROM, from the White Estate, and we have some of them already in our center. And sometimes from summer, during summer, the early will come and take some of this CD back to the field to sell. Just shortly before I left, just last week, one of them came and bought about 10. So they are selling. They are selling this along with some other books that are available. We also install for students and staff on their laptop, from our center. And I believe, just like what maybe Anna said, some of them, by the time they go through this and they value it, there are some things that at times you may want to. You may also prefer to get the hard copy if you are stimulated by what you have gathered and learned from the soft copy. I don't have any doubt that the two can go together. In my place, I think that is that.
May I make one suggestion to publishing houses? I was at a publishing house for a little while, so I think I understand this issue. There is something that publishing houses can do. People who are reading Ellen White or reading any books that are coming from the publishing house, publishing houses can work with local entities to create study groups that will go through their material together. If the publishing house does that, I've seen in some places where publishers will sell a subscription to that group. If you understand what I'm saying. Entrance into that group it doesn't have to be a lot, but there's some amount of money for the care and the feeding and the support and the mentorship within the group. That's an opportunity, I think, for Adventist publishers to create an environment where, even though the thing might be free online, the group that's actually studying it and going through it together, that is a facilitated group, and that can be a revenue stream. That's an opportunity. Other publishers are doing that.
Okay. I think we've made some statements concerning the extremes that we have in the public university. That's another question here. The extremists, I think we mentioned that already, and that has been addressed. This another one said SOP books, and in competition with other books. Question: how do we avoid other authors' books from crowding, overcrowding out or crowding out Ellen G. White books? What can we do? There are other books around. Any comments?
I'm not a publisher, so I don't know why they're giving me the mic. but the point is this. I'm not too sure if Dr. Bizrama is here. Mausi is also here. I'm not sure there's any policy that prohibits elites from selling non-E.G. White books. I think it is selling books that are not supplied through the church channel. That's what I understand. So I think the publishing policy discourages selling books not supplied through the church channel. However, we know that literature evangelists, I did it in my school days, sometimes we go out to source for books to sell so that we can make more money. But rather, what I think in the days past, from my early experience, was that some of the Ellen books are made as complementary books, even though their prices have been fixed into the books that are sold. So if there is that fear, I think the publishing director should be able to think of strategies. If you know that a health book from syphilis is selling faster, I think we can devise strategies. But I'm not sure that the publishing policy prohibits selling non-E.G. White books, provided those books are supplied through church channel. So I think that is what the PDDs or PDMs will have to handle.
That's correct.
Okay, I've got an affirmation. That is correct.
May I suggest also, in that question to me, there's a demand issue. They're not getting a groundswell push or pull for Ellen White books. That's what I'm hearing. But if we do what we're supposed to do and we leave here, and if a plan comes out that involves a consistent cadence of symposia and other things within local churches and within local conferences, there will become a groundswell, I believe, for Ellen White material that will evidence itself for the publishing work.
Okay, I think that should be okay. We understand that some people use Ellen G. White's writings wrongly, especially offshoot. How can we, as a church, prevent them from misusing our writings?
You can't. I mean, how do you know how they're going to misuse it until they misuse it? The question is, what are you going to do with it after they have misused it? But you can't prevent them from misusing it. You can try to educate them and all that, but you can't absolutely prevent. But you can correct. And that's why I think the symposium has been so helpful, because you now have a lot of information that some of you may not have had before about what is accurate about Ellen White. And so you can present make an accurate presentation about her, You can correct things afterwards, but can you actually, can you stop somebody from saying anything? No, I don't know how you can do that. Just like, how do you stop your kids from saying embarrassing things right in front of people you don't want it said in front of,
When I was doing research for my presentation, and I was in the net, I had a lot of information that pops out that are not from the church. If you are not careful, you might think this is Ellen G. White's writings or people writing in support of Ellen G. White. This is where education is needed when we go to our churches, and how we can synthesize this information. Especially when it comes to health. There are many people who are writing, and the way they write it, they put in some error there. You might think it's coming from the Seventh-day Adventist Church, or they are writing in support. But if you read very carefully, you will realize that they are not one of us. They are the offshoot. And so we need some of this education very frequently, especially, and my burden here is in the local church. I think in my presentation, I also made mention that there are many Eastern traditional medicine coming into the church now. Many people, especially church members who are not employed, they go into the internet, they pick anything, Eastern traditional medicine, and then they come into the local church, and then they impose it on the members. These people are ignorant, they don't know. And so we need to educate them, educate, and educate.
Well, if I could add also to what is being said, that one of the resources that I think people often overlook, and that is the Ellen G. White Estate website itself. I don't know how many of you have actually gone to that website that's put out by the General Conference and just explored it. You will find on that website there are so many resources, and you can even see answers to dealing with extreme groups. Everything from health to doctrines to historical misunderstandings. A lot of that information is right on the website. People have asked the questions before. They put that extreme error out before, and the White Estate has an answer to it. So a lot of times it's really just doing some research, going to the website, finding the answer, and then putting the truth out. And one of the most reliable sources, in fact, the website itself from the White Estate. So check that out, Google it, find whatever your issue is, put that in, and you'll find some great answers there.
To a large extent, the independent ministries, they operate in the space that we allow them to operate. One of the worst experiences that I ever had is I was invited to a church where one of these offshoot ministries went and divided completely the church. And the issue was, there were several issues, but one of those were the prophetic time periods of Daniel 12. 12, 90 days, 13, 35 days, and all these kind of things. And then at the afternoon program, a Sabbath afternoon, a couple, after the question and answer session, they stood up in the church and they said, "Thank you so much for coming here, spending our time with us, and everything is clear. You explained it to us. But I have a question to you, and we would like to have an answer. Should we be disciplined by the church for believing these heresies when our own preachers that use the pulpit do not educate us, do not teach us the truth, so that we would be vaccinated against the heresies when these people would show up?" And what would you answer in such a way? I could not say anything. If you preach the message that we have from the pulpit, these people will not be attracted, or our members will not be attracted with those. They will even try to correct them there. But if you leave them starving, they will swallow whatever comes.
Well, I would like also to stop on this key word. Both of you and you mentioned that educate. Of course, we have all these, twisted, distorted spiraled interpretations in all forms and shapes all around. But one things which is here, you see again and again the same approach. Selective reading, that is one thing. They pick out only one thing. That's people do the same thing with the Bible. By the way, you mentioned Daniel 12. We know that behind that there is one lady, who has written interpretation, and I was shocked that it's very popular even here in Kenya. Pastor said that is how we interpret, but that is, distortion, prophecies, cutting off pieces, gluing together. You cannot do such things, that's wrong hermeneutics. But another thing is, people pull out of the context. That is two things, selective, and pulling out of the context. And the third, of course, imposing. But the imposing of views, that's more maybe biblical, but here too. But one thing what I see, as it was mentioned here, that pastors, I think pastors are responsible, elders are responsible of teaching elementary interpretation, these things, rules, the basics. I'm not going into technicalities, some kind of academics, no, but the basic things. How you read, and what do you do when you have read this piece or paragraph. And I think Anna was here in the first lecture referring to one point, to read extensively, all read. Don't read only one piece and don't build a doctrine. I think that is one of very, very important things that everyone who is in church is education, as you said. Educate, either that's health or whatever.
And to add to that, educate, but also let's be proactive.
Yeah.
Let's not wait until these people come. Let's us to be proactive. We have these truths. Why should we keep it somewhere?
May I speak to that? I resonate with that. I don't like things to happen to me. I like to happen to things. So, especially when it comes to extremism, not when we know it's out there, we should not sit back. And let me mention this. The white estate is very sensitive to this need at the church and at the home level. And we are, if the Lord helps us, we're trying to produce a suite of resources to help the local church on these very issues. Basic hermeneutical principles for understanding and reading Ellen White. Next year, the 125th anniversary of Steps to Christ. That's a perfect time for us to teach members how to read a very simple book of hers. And then extend that reading and that way of interpreting her writings and reading onto other works of hers. So we sense the need for the home, and we see the need for churches and for pastors in particular. It's not, I don't think it's, there are some pastors I'm sure who don't want to do this thing. Maybe they're not convinced about Ellen White, they don't want to preach it. But I think if we could get it all in one place so that a local pastor or a local church has the basic resources in one place, I think we would help the church.
But then you need it to have in several languages.
I'd like to comment that the African pastor is a very busy pastor. He has got funerals, he's doing counseling and all that. So after so many, after such a long time without having a look at the book of Daniel or Spirit of Prophecy, this thing has just gone. So what we need to do, perhaps, instead of focusing on the local church members, perhaps let's try to bring some revival to the church pastors and the elders, re-educate them, and let's move from there.
Okay, this is another one. We have only about 10 more minutes. That will be saying that Adventist educations are very unique, but many of the schools that we have that are church school are always very expensive. What can we do?
I would say go to AUA.
Another comment?
I think that it's simple analysis. Unfortunately, we don't look at those analyses. Like when I was at Babcock, that was always the complaint. However, some of us took an interest in trying to identify how much, let's say, Kenyan government spends on a student at the University of Nairobi. You realize that it is actually more than what our people pay to attend Adventist universities. You see, because the student who goes to the University of Nairobi maybe pays 20,000 Kenyan shillings. It is the government that pays the teachers, the government maintains the hostels, the government equips the library, the infrastructure is provided by the government, the utilities are provided by the government. When you factor this and then divide it by each student that attend that university, you will realize that the government spends more on one student in the public institution than we spend in Adventist schools. The challenge, however, Jackson was making an analysis this morning, and he said, if you look at maybe the tithe cards, we say Adventists are very poor. Maybe the challenge is the economy of Adventists. But if you are looking at the cost of education, to be very honest with you, I spent a lot of time at Babcock in administration and other things. If you look at the quality of education that we give, and you compare with what the public gives, and look at what the government pays to maintain the student, I think government education is not quite expensive. It's just the issue of maybe the challenge of the economy. But one other thing also which is gradually losing, which Dr. Mutero tried to bring up yesterday, is the issue of work study. I know when some of us went through school, then Aswana Babcock, he was my schoolmate, though senior in school. We had students who were able to work meaningfully. But now, if you go to our schools, it's like that culture is no longer there. It's no longer there. Although what we try to do at Babcock, I still use Babcock because here is a graduate institution. I've just spent about 3 years here. In order to even encourage Adventist students to work, we don't give them that bursary until it is certified that we are doing work study. I see those, because at Babcock, all 7 Adventist students have an annual scholarship. But you cannot benefit from that amount if you are not doing the work study. It must be proved that you are doing work study. There are some students from Advent who don't need it because maybe they are very wealthy home. So I think that we need to go back to look at the issue of work study to see how we can assist the students who go through our schools, the original hand, and then whatever their parents can provide, and also this issue of canvassing that you mentioned. Well, I had level of sponsorship when I was studying, but for the 6 years I did my program, my bachelor's, my master's degree, I was always canvassing, by the way, except the one summer, I was a student missionary volunteer in one of the local conferences. So I think that we need to look at the global issue. I need to look at the global issue, and then be committed to it. We will be able to do that.
I quickly want to say the concept of the church school, we don't follow it consistently. My understanding of the church school was that the church would kick in some resources into that school so that even poor parents are able to send their children to that school, because the whole issue of education must be viewed as the work of redeeming people and developing them. So if it's individualized, you bring your money and pay, what did it cost? Then we face these problems. But if it's a church school, I lived in Berlin Springs for quite a number of years. I liked the concept of my church called Pioneer Memorial Church. No one who is a member of that church can fail to send a child to Ruth Murdoch or that academy, because the church kicks in some resources and says, you don't have money, send your child there. The rich will put money there, and there will be money. If we keep the church school, but if we individualize, we are not going to solve the problem.
You know, we sometimes try to compare our school system with a public one. And we say, well, why our tuition is so expensive compared with the other one that's free? It's not free, you pay. It's not the government that pays it. It's your taxes that pays it. The government just puts it over there. So I think that what makes the difference, we don't receive any subsidy almost from the government. Some places are different than other ones, some countries. We don't receive that kind of subsidy from income tax. And I think that values today are far more important than just giving knowledge to the students.
And I also think that, but I think this is a mere perception that is going around. Is it really true that Seventh-day Adventist schools are more expensive? Maybe you have not done the analysis, but I think it is not true. And once somebody says it here, then it goes round, it spreads around that Seventh-day Adventist institutions are very expensive. Of course, if we know why we should send our children to Adventist education, we will never be saying that Adventist educations are too expensive.
And also the word priority. What do we prioritize in our own life? Do we prioritize our children and their salvation, or we prioritize things that we have today and tomorrow will be gone?
Let me also say, maybe because of our complaint and the fact that we don't really value what we have, the non-Adventists are taking over. You know, if you go back to Adventist University at home, I was discussing with someone, even both at even if you talk of the undergraduate students, I think the percentage of Adventists should be maybe around 10 or less than 30%. And the PG college, the postgraduate program, many are abandoning their programs in the public school because of the stable calendar that we have. And they are joining us. I was sharing with someone just this afternoon, the master program, there's a general course, a religious general course that I am teaching. I have about 134 students. You know, just in the master program for one window, and we have 3 windows for the year. We have the summer, we have the weekends, then we have the regular. And people are really trooping in. If we make use of the facilities and the avenue that we have to generate funds, and we value what we have, I believe where there is a will, there will always be a way. Another question here. What is in your view, what in your view can promote the full embrace of the earth message among leaders, pastors, and members? Come again. That how can we encourage, what in our own view, what do we have to say about the fact that members and pastors and leaders don't embrace certain teachings of Ellen White? Earth message specifically. I think one way we can convince the church members, especially when we are leaders, that the health message that Ellen G. White has given us is authentic, is to live it, is to model it. If I am a conference, let's say president, or a conference secretary, or conference treasurer, and I am not exercising and I'm not doing all those determinants of health, I don't even have any message to talk to the church members. But when the church member sees you running every day and trying to live this health message, it's a motivation, isn't it? And you come to Advent Hill here, it's a wonderful place here to jog and to run around. And I will encourage, it's so sad that we have church elders, church leaders who do not live the health message that Ellen G. White has given us. And I was telling friends that when I have been a canvasser, I use canvassing to sponsor myself from undergraduate all the way to my doctorate degree program. And there is a church pastor in Ghana, and not an SDA church. That man is Pastor Mensah Otago. He has a church in Ghana. He bought all our health books. And now, when he stands to preach, he preaches our health message. And the church members are so happy and so appreciative. But those of us who are the custodian,
of the health message, it looks as if we don't value it. We are not living it.
Right. May I just say this one thing? I think something that we don't do in the church enough, number one, is preach the health message. You don't really hear health message sermons, and it's usually in churches where the pastors are not practicing the health message. You don't hear the sermons. That's one. The other thing is, the health message, the purpose of the health message, I think we sometimes lose. Yes, it's health and wellness, it's disease prevention and all of that. But the part that I don't think we talk about is the fact that God needs a clean vessel to speak through and speak to. And I think what really has blessed me from Ellen White's writings on health is that if I keep my body healthy, then God's messages to me are clearer. And I'm a better exponent of the gospel when I try to witness to people of it, in addition to all the other benefits that I get personally. So I'm just saying that I think we need to keep in front of our people the objective. God is trying to use you to help save others.
Okay, I think I have to thank all the presenters.
Pastor, there's one powerful quote that Ellen White makes about the subject that Dwayne was just talking about. She says the body is the most important medium for the upbuilding of the character. The body is the most important medium for the upbuilding of the character. So the better we take care of our bodies, the better God can communicate to us, and as you were saying, He can communicate through us. So as we live it, so we are empowered and we are enriched by the very practice itself.
Okay. Once again, big thanks to all and for all our questions. If your question has not been answered and you are sure of the one that can answer, just have a personal contact and you can receive answers to your questions. The way.
Thank you so much.